Clemson has a dangerous game on the road against Georgia Tech this week. They are a 3.5-point favorite going into this game, and they've entered this season sputtering out the gate. They didn't look that good offensively against LSU. They came out flat last week against Troy. You're going up against a Georgia Tech team that was a heavy pick to be the sleeper team to possibly make it out of the ACC and represent this conference in the playoffs. They are an experienced team led by Haynes King, one of the best quarterbacks in college football, great runner, very tough and gritty quarterback. Haynes King is the perfect embodiment of what Georgia Tech football is under Brent Key. And this is a program-defining game for Georgia Tech against Clemson this week, because this game is going to tell us the trajectory of Georgia Tech football. Is this program ready to compete for the ACC? Are they ready to make it to the playoffs, or are they still a year or two behind, depending on how this game against Clemson goes? Because with how well Georgia Tech has developed, how they've gone about making their assessments with their acquisitions in the transfer portal, the guys that they've retained, developed from the high school ranks. They have a great coaching staff. Georgia Tech is a sleeping giant. With the right head coach and the right infrastructure, they could be what Arizona State is right now. They could be what Clemson once was and eventually establish themselves. They have the facilities to be a premier program in college football, but can they get to that level under Brent Key? This game is kind of going to be a little bit of a litmus test for that. With Clemson defensively having two potential top 10 picks on the defensive line, TJ Parker, Peter Woods, they have to be able to take over this game for Clemson. If Clemson's going to avoid getting upset on the road against Georgia Tech, they need for TJ Parker and Peter Woods to be disruptors. They have to create a lot of havoc plays, a lot of sacks, a lot of tackles for loss. If they allow Georgia Tech to run the football on them the way Georgia Tech has their first 2 weeks, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I don't believe that Clemson has the kind of team that's built to win these low-scoring, time of possession-driven games. That's what it is when you're playing against this Georgia Tech squad. If you can't win the time of possession battle, if you can't maximize every possession that you get the ball on offense, you're going to get in trouble against Georgia Tech. With how sloppy Klubnik and Clemson's offense has looked early to start this season, are they going to get right against Georgia Tech? Defensively, we can trust that Clemson can get stops in this game. Georgia Tech isn't the kind of team that's going to light up the scoreboard on you. But if you allow them to run the football, you will lose. That's not the kind of game that Clemson wants to get in. Clemson's offense, that offensive line, has to play a lot better than what it has the first couple of weeks. The offensive line was supposed to be an actual strength of this team. Klubnik was the best quarterback in college football. At least I thought he was entering this season. Hasn't really played that well. They need a lot to go right to avoid getting upset in this game, because Georgia Tech is a really good team, and this is their shot to prove it. However, I'm going to take Clemson to beat Georgia Tech 24-20 is my final score prediction. I see TJ Parker and Peter Woods, along with Will Help, taking over this game for Clemson, slowing down that Georgia Tech rushing attack, and eventually Clemson's offense will find a way to get going. They'll find a way to get a little bit of a spark. Klubnik, he's capable. Yeah, he may have been a little bit rough these first couple of weeks throwing the football, but he's a very good runner. Clemson can run the football. They have the ability to run the football. They just haven't shown that they can, but they will in this game against Georgia Tech. Their offensive line should be able to push around Georgia Tech's defensive line. This is a capable offensive line. I'm not willing to bet on Clemson's offensive line this early. Clemson does have a lot of experience on this offensive line unit. And I believe that Clemson's talent on the O-line, D-line wins this game for them. I know I've been saying this for the last few weeks about Clemson, but eventually their talent on the trenches has to prevail, and I believe it will against Georgia Tech. So give me Clemson to win this game.